pull up a chair at the Mile High Roundtable. You're listening to 5280 the podcast on the MHRT Network.
Packers jumping around, they rush forward. Plenty of time for John, now squeezes, steps up in the pocket. LA can run, inside the 10, head first, he dives off the 5-yard line.
Manning out of the gun. Manning lets it fly. It's caught by Thomas. There's the record for Peyton Manning.
Rushing forward, ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground and still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line.
Here we go. First snap of the overtime. The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. They won them all. Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Stiff arm got him free to the 30. To the 20. Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on to New England. They win it on the first.
And welcome to the show. My name is Mundungus Creevy, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-hosts Glenn Hauser, Cam, and Bree. You are currently listening to the 5280 podcast on the MHRT Network. We are a fan-led Broncos-based podcast doing our absolute best to best. There I got
it. Was what?
Best. I like chicken to bring you good stuff. That's all I got. Okay, that's the show, everybody.
We are off to a great start right now.
Oh, man. Oh, okay. So, how's everybody else doing?
I don't know. I love that.
Yeah, I can't complain. I also enjoy chicken.
Everybody loves chicken. Now, I'm going to apologize up front if I start hacking up a lung. I am dealing with some coronavirus at my household, and I've had it, but I'm almost over it, so I apologize in advance. But
first things first, if you do cough up a lung, it's probably important that we call 911.
No, that's fine.
I won't even know what to do.
If the lung comes up, it's time. We'll just call it. It's just time. All right, so let's take a quick swinger on the NFL before we get into some Broncos stuff. Just happened, I think, an hour or two ago. Julio Jones signs with the Bucs. Is he even going to get used at all? I mean, with the amount of receiving threats on that team, what do you need Julio Jones for?
I mean, that was the argument for why they signed Antonio Brown, right? I mean, we didn't necessarily know how he would fit, and then sure enough, Antonio Brown kind of became a pivotal part of that offense. But I mean, I'm happy for Julio. I mean, for one, I mean, Tom Brady stole the Super Bowl that you were a part of, so you might as well join him. I mean, I mean, hey, but it was also one of the greatest comebacks. To be fair, Tom Brady was one of the greatest comebacks against the Atlanta Falcons, and so yeah, I mean,
it was probably the greatest comeback. Just
yeah.
To put it into perspective.
Yeah, let's talk it. Let's give credit where it's due. No, it's okay. You already dug the hole, Cam. You can't. I mean, you can climb back out of it, but let's just leave it there. I think it gives some ample time for Godwin to come back from that injury, and kudos to Jones. We were just talking on a different show about how would you consider Julio Jones a Hall of Fame wide receiver at this point in his career? You go and play with Tom Brady, you bring home another Super Bowl, you get close. I think that's a pretty good conversation to have. But it does, give Godwin some good time to heal up, although it does look like he's trending to be ready to go for training camp, which was kind of surprising.
It's smart of Julio because, the NFC is, you have to be just pretty much average to get into the playoffs in the NFC these days because compared to the AFC. So not a bad move to go back to that conference and try his hand with I'll pander to Bree, the greatest quarterback that's ever, walk the face of the earth.
Pander.
Well, listen, I'm not the only one saying it. It's not like it's just me holding my sign up.
I have never heard anyone else say that about Tom Brady. It's just
Tom Brady is the best quarterback of all time.
You can't jump on the bandwagon now, Cam. It's
Cam,
too
you can
late.
have brownie points. It's fine. I'll give it to you.
A little bit of sad news for Drew Lock and for Noah Fant. I know it's the Seahawks, but they still came from the Broncos. Chris Carson, the running back for Seattle, was dropped, and then he retired today. So that kind of sucks for weapons that they had, or lack thereof, that they had on that Seattle roster.
Well, and honestly, good for Chris Carson, though, because, I mean, like, he was actually kind of an underrated running back within the NFL, not just for, we'll just say, not just for fantasy football standards. But, I mean, it's just like, he was an underrated back. And I think that, for him, he was also dealing with numerous injuries. And, he had a pretty, good career. And if he was to the point where he couldn't do it anymore, I mean, kudos to him for, stepping aside and, and retiring. So really good on Carson. And it's a huge hit for the Seahawks, unfortunately, for the running game. But I mean, still, kudos to Carson for taking that retirement.
It is interesting when you start looking at the depth chart. So then the next in line is Rashad Penny. Yeah. And then you look at wide receivers, and that's even a little bit slimmer. It looks like there's going to be a struggle there offensively, and that's just not even including throwing Drew Lock out there. So it can't get a fair shake if you don't have targets to target. So hopefully Noah Fant and Drew Lock can find a connection there again, but it's hard not to just feel sort of bad for them.
Yeah, no, I don't feel bad for him. Carson was a 7th round draft pick. He's one of those guys that was a fantasy darling when he was, when he was healthy, and I think the Seahawks probably had knowledge that this was going to happen. They picked Kenneth Walker Jr. from Michigan State earlier in the draft, so they've got that going on in the depth chart. But so now they've got either Drew or Geno Smith handing the ball off to either one of those guys. So
and this is personally not a slight at Drew at all, but I mean it's just like if Russell,
with all due respect,
but if it's just like if Russell was still there, at quarterback, would Chris Carson have retired?
It's a neck injury. He definitely would have.
But I mean, it was just something that was kind of flying around. I mean, at least for me, I didn't know whether or not he was going to be leaning toward retirement. So I just wasn't sure. Is it possible maybe he would have, contemplated maybe coming back? I guess. I
mean, I my pure speculation is that any player, if they can play, is going to play and take that paycheck as well. He only played 5 years. So, it's when you're talking about a neck injury, I would imagine that the doctors probably are pretty frank with you as far as
the fact that they dropped him or cut him and then he retired. I'm assuming that the injury was bad enough that he probably wasn't going to play for a while anyways. But it does suck.
The only reason why I asked that question is because that's probably a question that's going to be asked. That's, maybe if not already. But no, when you've had a neck as bad as Carson has, I mean, that's at that point the best thing for your career is to move along.
And then one other thing before we start getting into Broncos related stuff, the NFL has come up with NFL Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Now that streams out of market preseason games and then local games during the season.
So everything that I actually have NFL Plus, and so everything. Well, I should say it was.
You jumped on that quick.
Well, I mean, but I mean,
founding member. Yeah.
Well, but I should say it was Game Pass last year, and then it sort of like molded, I guess, into NFL Plus. Well, on the for the first Plus side, it was $99.99, and then it went down to $79.99. But no, you're looking at Game Pass, full and condensed game replays, coaches film, live out of market preseason games, live game audio, and live local and primetime regular season and postseason games on your phone or tablet. You can clearly tell that I read that from an email.
No, not at all. Okay, so it's basically Game Pass, except you can watch the live games while the game is going on outside the preseason. Okay. Okay. Meh. All right. So one of the things, and it's not directly Broncos, but Chiefs offensive tackle Orlando Franklin not reporting to training camp. The suckage continues for the Chiefs. That's the only reason why I had that on my phone. The suckage continues for the Chiefs. Ha!
Well, one of the signings for the Chiefs that frightened me a little bit was Justin Ross, and now he was placed on IR yesterday, and now to get the that Orlando is holding out. This is just a two straight days of good news. So let's keep it up, Chiefs. Let's have some guys decide they're not going to play. Let's I've heard people predicting that they're going to be third in the division, behind the Broncos and the Chargers. So that would be pretty spectacular.
Welcome to the 5280 podcast, where we root for your demise. And I think that that's an accurate depiction of kind of what's going on in Kansas City, because there's a lot of interesting storylines going into their training camp. And that's probably just another one on the head. Now, it would be interesting to see whether or not they would fall to third. But I think any team in the AFC West has an opportunity to wind up in the top three. And then there's the Raiders. So I said what I said.
Well, and
adding that to my intro. Hold on a sec.
Well, I was going to say too, and then of course there is that really good wide receiver darling that Boggins had been stumping for, but clearly his impact will not be known. He's going to be on IR.
Sorry, I was typing. Okay, so there's been
demise.
Yeah, I was. There are a lot of teams. I think 13 came out with alternate helmets.
Mm-hmm.
Do the Broncos need to come out with alternate helmets?
Yes, they do.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
no brainer.
I think there's way too much of an emphasis on the Broncos needing to revamp their uniform. I'm not trying to be a fun sucker. Like, I'm usually very I am a little bit, because there's just a little too much positivity around, and I think that it's rubbing off on me in the wrong way. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with the current iteration of the Broncos uniforms. I think they're kind of timeless. I think they're classic. I'm worried about any different design that would come out and would somehow be cheesy. I'm kind of scared they're going to screw up a good thing. I do realize that Russell Wilson's the quarterback now. We want something different. Can't we wear the orange on orange a little bit more? And then you get people who hate that. I think, don't listen to Broncos country and what they want, because then you're going to be kind of frustrated in what's going on. I'm not a fan of that creamsicle and washed out robin's egg blue. But I'm not saying the Navy's any better. And then that all just ties in with the helmet. If you do the old D logo and you need an alternative helmet, they already are going to assume be using that. I just don't think that they've shown new helmets. So I don't know if they need a new helmet this season.
Yeah.
I do love the color rush helmet. I'm all over that with the dark blue.
It looks good. It looks sweet.
It's really sharp.
Yeah. And I mean, if there's not going to be any sort of jersey changes or whatever, maybe make a helmet change and then make the color rush helmet like the permanent helmet or something like that. Or if you want to do an alternate helmet, which is kind of the way things are going now, maybe make a alternate version of that. So maybe do a white helmet with the classic Denver D logo instead of the blue the classic blue that had been in the past. But no, I mean, I will say that I'm definitely on the pro jersey side, but at the same time, I also do understand that the jerseys the Broncos have, they have history to them, in the sense that, I mean, the first time that they got those jerseys, they won the Super Bowl in them. And then also it was around that point in time, what is it? You had the Miami Hurricanes kind of come out with a similar uniform, in that style. And then, the Broncos sort of took suit with it and then kind of created a variation of that. And so I think that it's definitely one that I'm definitely for. And I also too, I think that, when you have the, what is it? The new ownership, really. I mean, it's just one of those things, like, unfortunately with the new ownership, those are types of things that you do have to consider, like jerseys. And of course, the other conversation people always love to talk about, which is the moving of the stadium.
I think we go with what Graham said and only go with the yellow and brown, like the mustard
will.
and brown, but only if
No.
they take the socks and twist them so lines are like that. So that when you see them run, you get nauseated.
I will say, if they do go to those jerseys, I have the socks. They're in my drawer. I'll just have to pull them out on game days if they wear them.
Perfect. It works out that way, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I saw a comment about doing the all navy with an orange stripe. No, orange is the primary color of the Denver Broncos, and it should remain as such. And then that white helmet, I saw a mock-up of that. I wasn't a big fan, but now I feel like I'm just being super negative. So I apologize to everybody for not being my usual bubbly self. But I'm not a fan of, like, I think I'm oversaturated personally on all the mock-ups and all the Photoshops. Like, we get it.
Yeah.
But it's not like the Broncos are going to be like, hey, that one, and then grab it and then give you, I don't know, props for creating it. But maybe they will, and I'm just having a bad day. So,
well, especially like if you Photoshop something and then don't put your name on it, then you never get credit for it. Wink, wink.
Sorry, Bob. An all black helmet I would be a fan of, and that's an obvious choice. I think if you did the black helmet with like a royal blue. Did you see the Arizona Cardinals and what they added to theirs?
Oh, the sparkle or the sheen?
The
so
sparkle,
cool.
and it's actually like a rare mineral or rock that they use to create that coloration. So that red rocky, I don't know, it's absolutely gorgeous. If the Broncos did something like that, I think that's a nice touch. I guess I don't like the pastel-y, cartoony vibes that are currently going around right now.
Yeah, well, if you look at the alternate helmets that have come out, they all pretty much look like you would think they would, just with like for example, the Cardinals one is all black with the Cardinals on it. The only one that was weird was the Bengals. They went with a white helmet with the black Bengal stripes, which was really weird. You like it?
Absolutely gorgeous. Have you ever seen a white tiger? How majestic they are. The Bengals absolutely won the rebranding this year.
Yeah.
It's going to remind me of when I saw like Siegfried and Roy. It's going to be.
Graham said, I know you said just those. I got it. I got it covered. Tommy wants to know thoughts on a new stadium. He believes it would be 100% funded by ownership. Do you actually think that Rob Walton would 100% pay for a stadium?
That would take a lot of stones to have 70 billion in the bank and ask for a handout. In other words, yes, he's going to ask for a handout.
Well, I don't know. I will say it was actually Joey who was the first that I had seen it, where he did bring up to what Bree was talking about earlier, is like, it should scare people in the sense of, like, as far as just with the jerseys, because it's like, what if they suck? Because there is that that possibility that if they get new jerseys, they might suck. So I think, because we can be all sorts of, optimistic, and, everybody who knows me, I'm definitely an optimist, but it's just like, there's always, going to end up being, that part of you that is thinking, well, there's definitely a distinct possibility that not just the helmets might suck, but I mean, if they go and, create a new stadium, that stadium might actually suck too.
Stadium sucks and beers are $20 a pop. I don't think I can do it, y'all.
Yeah.
She's sneaking in her own beer.
That whatever it takes, that's what I do here. I think that if they do move it, there's going to be problems. So there's problems now with the current stadium, where it is getting in and out of there. But that kind of adds to what has been Mile High Stadium for the last 20 years at that current location. So 20 years?
Yeah.
No, it's
exactly.
long. Okay, 20 years.
2001.
20, yeah, so 21.
21 years. it's weird how all the timing is working out like that with the Avalanche and the Broncos, and everything's kind of turning over a new leaf. This is a new generation. This is like years of championships. I think there's something very beautiful about that tie-in there. I just do not want to, and this is a very selfish statement, I don't want to have to drive 45, 50 minutes out east in order to watch every single game. But that is quite the privileged stance to take there. And I know that I am not the only person who feels that way, but also it would be convenient for other people. So I'll be crashing in someone's yard out in Brighton, and that's how I'll make it work. A dome would be fantastic because you all know I'm not a fan of the snow, but I know that football weather is important. It would just suck to lose that scenic overlook with the sunset and the downtown and the mountains. And I don't know, there's something nostalgic about that. So as far as like, yeah, the owner should pay for it. Glenn, I think you're right on the money, though. Has all that money, of course he's going to ask for a handout. So I agree.
Bree, you are right about traffic, though. I mean, I know some people that actually have to take scooters into the stadium, so it's
I would love to.
Challenge, but
somebody makes me walk way too far. Glenn.
But
we were looking for Bree and we got lost.
We went around the stadium like 3 times trying to find Bree, and it's like, just give me a scooter or shoot me.
You texted me too late in the day. I'm sorry.
But no, and it's definitely a favorite topic that we've talked about as far as, where will the stadium be? And I'm just not a fan of, moving it to DIA, and sticking it to DIA. I mean, obviously, people who, maybe, out of Colorado, Mike, Glenn, I mean, it's probably an awesome, sight, when you're flying in, to see the Broncos Stadium flying in. But I mean, for people that, are like trying to drive there, the traffic would be absolutely insane to try and get there. And yeah, so I mean, it'd be crazy. And so I don't know. I understand, all the different alternatives, and I just feel like the best thing, and we've talked about it numerous occasions, but still the best thing that they can possibly do. Graham's just saying that because he wants.
Graham says bring him to Winnipeg.
Yeah, Graham's just saying that because he wants it, closer to his neck of the woods, which is understandable. But I mean, I think that for everything with the stadium, they have to kind of keep it around that same area. I mean, heck, it's almost as if we're talking about the rock or the mountain skyline. Ask the Colorado Buffaloes if they want to move their stadium away from that type of scenic look that they can have from Folsom. I mean, that would be no, the Folsom Field, you idiot. I can't believe I'm actually praising a Colorado Buffalo football field, but no, Folsom Field is a beautiful scenic location. So if we're talking about the mountain view, it's a big time view when you can have that kind of mountain view. So I mean, heck, yeah, ask the Colorado Buffaloes if maybe they want to move their type of. They're going to say no, hands down.
Yeah. So another big thing that came out this week was Madden ratings. People were all over Madden because of their terrible, terrible rankings. Now, we're not exactly going to go into that, but should there have been a player on the Broncos that had a 99? And if not, who should be the top-ranked player on the Broncos in Madden rankings? Yes,
Patrick Surtain. And 99 is not good enough. It needs to be 100. Is that
okay?
Question.
Justin Simmons,
99.9.
Justin Simmons would probably be the other one. But no, I mean, I look at the end of the day, Madden rankings they are what they are. I mean, we have zero control over them. Are they, maybe a big deal in the sense that could they use some better ratings? Yes. Could I, kind of care less about those ratings? Absolutely. I couldn't care less about those ratings. But I mean, the beautiful thing about a video game is you can go in and you can literally edit that player to the appropriate rating. You could literally edit all the players if you wanted to a 99. You could literally do anything that you want to that particular football player that you want at a 99 or however you want your rating. So it's kind of pointless.
No one deserves a 99, but Simmons should be a 95 and the highest rated player on the Broncos.
I guess that's
go with
more
that.
logical or reasonable. I appreciate Tommy for Landon. Sorry, that was Landon for being so even keel, I guess, if nobody deserves a 99.
Landon gets his brains from his mother for sure.
He really does. He really does.
I think it's something that we all get a little, so we're like hungry and we're ready to feast on all that preseason has to give us. And we've been waiting for training camp for how long? And then the Madden ratings come out and it's like, oh my God, fresh information to tackle. And then everyone for about 48 hours goes crazy about it. And that's just how it goes. Like if you're in famine, why not feast on silly ratings? Like I'm all about it. I don't care either way. I haven't played Madden since probably the early 2000s.
Yeah.
I don't
Back
know.
when it was good. Yeah.
Coming off an NFL blitz. That was the game right there. NFL blitz.
I mean, you're
That
not
was
wrong.
just-
Run Elway
Like
around the
the-
side every single time. That's all it took. So one of the main topics I want to talk about tonight, and it's something that Nick Kendall brought up on Twitter. He had asked if you could add one non-quarterback Denver Broncos player from the past to this current roster of the Broncos, who would you add and why? And I wanted to bring it to you guys to see what you thought. Is there a player from the Broncos past that you would add to this current roster and why? Glenn, you're up first.
I'm leaning towards Shannon Sharp, actually. You know, I think the wide receivers I see Rod Smith in there, but I think the wide receivers are a pretty strong group. But if you had a Shannon Sharp in there as well, with his size and his ability and his catching ability, blocking strength, that would be pretty spectacular. I was trying to think of a defensive player, but
I was gonna say, Glenn, that was your window to say, let's have Randy Gradishar of the Broncos. And, and
really should have.
You clearly, passed that.
Joe Hamilton says Carl Mecklenburg.
Great dude. And great player.
One of the most underrated players in Broncos history. He's a victim of his own talents. The fact is he played every position outside of defensive backs and played them well, but he didn't play just one position and be recognized for that. So he's kind of being penalized for his versatility. Joe Klecko with the Jets, he's kind of facing the same thing. He's one of the semifinalists as well. So you mentioned Randy. Good luck to Randy, Mike Shanahan, and Dan Reeves tomorrow, because there's supposed to be an announcement as far as the senior class.
That's super exciting. I see Tommy already mentioned Nayland, so I'll go with Matt Paradis. Paradis?
No, you're right.
That's right. Paradis.
I kept wanting to say Paradise. So I was feeling like Ron Burgundy over here because I was seeing it in my head, and I was like, "Don't say it."
Sing it like Coldplay, though, Bree.
No. Yeah, I'd have to go in. I just think that it would just be such a formidable, just tightening up that offensive line, incredible center, consistent, never going to miss a snap unless you fracture a fibula. I don't know. But Nayland's a really great second choice. That was gonna be my first. So thank you, Tommy, for throwing that out there.
There's a lot of great choices, and I think that's one of the things with these kinds of exercises that are so fun, because it's like not only are you adding a particular player, but you're also appreciating the players from the past. And so I think it's a fun exercise, and there just are a lot of really good players to choose from, and it just depends on what type of motive that you have when you want to do these kinds of things. Like, do you want to go after position of need? Like, do you want to go after, or do you want to just, pick potentially like your favorite player, right? And so
would it surprise you if I said maybe Wes Welker?
no.
Actually, no.
But I will say, for the sake of the fact that no one has actually even brought him up, maybe even in the comments that I've seen, I'll say Champ Bailey. I think that having two lockdown corners of Champ Bailey and Pat Surtain locking down, both sides of the field, and then not to mention this young, should we say, and unproven pass rush duo or pass rush depth, should we say. I mean, it would only even benefit it from that much more of having a kind of secondary like that. So then not only do you have Surtain, but you have Champ on that other side, and then you have that secondary of Caden Stearns and Kareem Jackson. I was half tempted to go linebacker and go with the likes of maybe like an Al Wilson or Randy Gradishar or maybe even a guy that kind of feels a little bit forgotten, but in today's game would do quite well, and that's DJ Williams. There are definitely a few choices. I know that some people have been mentioning some of the interior defensive line as well. Defensive line guys like Trevor Price. So, yeah.
Mike,
I had
Mobley?
Well, I had a few that I kept going back and forth with. So, like, Tom Nalen at center would be fantastic. I had Trevor Price would be good as well. Obviously, I had John Mobley. You can't go without John Mobley. And then Champ Bailey. But honestly, and it's the reason why I put him on the thumbnail, I think Tom Nalen. Because for me, I wanted to pick a player from the past that would make the team better at a weak spot for our current roster. And as much as I love Terrell Davis, as much as I love Rod Smith, I don't know if adding them with the current crop of running backs and wide receivers that we're already strong at I don't know how much better they would make those groups because we don't know how well they're going to play this year. So for me, it was Tom Nalen. I'd add in the center to solidify the offensive line and let Russ cook.
Avatar just nailed us with a good one. Throw it up, Mike.
Yeah.
Zimmerman.
Oh, Gary Zimmerman. That's a great one.
Yeah.
That is a great one.
It is a great one.
Hey, glad you're back, Avatar. Hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, how dare you miss last week? No, I'm just kidding.
He also threw out John Lynch, who is one of my favorite players. I have a jersey of him as well.
Tampa.
I don't know. It's
Boom.
No, it's actually a Broncos jersey.
There's a mic drop.
Funny.
Yeah, Pat Bolinet owner. That's we can bring it back. Okay. All right. So I know that Glenn had brought it up before when we were talking about Orlando Franklin skipping training camp for the Chiefs. ESPN had a story
not
on
Franklin.
Whatever his name is. Leave me alone. I'm sick. Hold on. I got to go back and double check. I deleted it. Whatever. Okay. So ESPN had a story on ranking the rosters of NFL teams. I know they talked about it a little bit on the Wild Wild West, but they had the Chargers at 3rd, the Chiefs at 9th, the Broncos at 14th, and the Raiders at 21st. And I feel like the Chiefs should not be above the Broncos roster-wise.
Did you say the Chargers at 3rd?
3rd, had the 3rd ranked roster in the NFL.
Entirety of the NFL?
The entire NFL. 3rd.
They're not even a playoff team. Wow. Okay.
That was what my face looked like. Was really the Chargers at 3rd?
I don't know, man.
Or you misspoke, which wouldn't have been surprising. So
correct.
I don't know.
Still thinking about chicken.
I think that I actually think the Chargers roster is pretty dang close. That's just my opinion, but I think that they are pretty dang close. I mean, they have the offensive line. They have Austin Eckler. They have the back Isaiah Spiller, who they just drafted. Obviously, they have Justin Herbert. You have Rashawn Slater. You have the weapons basically still intact, and then obviously they have the secondary that they have, and Brandon Staley. I mean, you could argue he started to falter a little bit later in the season, but I mean, clearly there's some, marriage stuff there with the Chargers that it seems to be doing quite well, except for maybe near the end of the year. I will say though, and I've made the point, once before, but for some odd reason, it's maybe the curse of the Chargers or something, but they always lose a game that they should always win for whatever reason. And maybe it's the Chargers curse, but
or tie.
yeah. But I really do like the Chargers team overall. And actually, I'll be honest, I think I like the Chargers roster more than the Chiefs roster. But I think that the Chargers and the Broncos are actually close as far as, how good their rosters are.
I just never understood because like last year, Denver was consistently put in the top 10 as far as rosters. And I don't see how we got worse. Like it doesn't make any sense because we were missing a quarterback last year. We got Russell Wilson and now we backslid in the roster rankings. It doesn't make any sense. I don't see where we got worse on the roster from signing Russell Wilson.
I mean, we did give the Chargers Callahan basically. So I guess they can have that one up. Hey, watch what you say. The Chargers being third, though, I'm like trying to comb through right now and figure out what the heck is going on. Because who are the two teams in front of them?
Oh,
who would be the worst team?
I think the Bucks and the Rams is who they have. Or Bucks and Bills. Bucks and Bills.
Bucks and Bills is 100% correct. But to say that Chargers are the next guys up, that's interesting.
Well, I will say I don't
move on from this.
Well, training camp hasn't started where one of their defensive players gets some strange injury. They always seem to get injured. Some freaky thing happens. They never seem to deliver. Let them have this false hope that they're the number 3 best roster. And to Mike's point about Russell Wilson and us getting the team, getting him on our team, there's been a narrative the last week and a half or so where all of a sudden it's like, the Seahawks must have gotten rid of him because he's falling apart. He's not, his skills are diminishing. It's like, this is a guy that's missed 3 games in total in his entire career. They were all last year. And he was on pace for MVP consideration prior to that injury. So let's please stop that this guy is on the downside. I mean, we were bummed that we weren't going to get a 39-year-old quarterback. Now we have a 33-year-old quarterback that's a Super Bowl champion. I mean, it just makes no sense.
Yeah.
I thought I was on mute when I laughed like that.
Well, yeah, but the Packers have a 39-year-old quarterback that looks like the Nicolas Cage guy off of Con Air.
That was very funny.
But I will say I don't think they're third. I just think that the Chargers do have a pretty good roster as far as I don't think I would put them third at all because they haven't done anything to prove that they are say the third in the best overall roster. I think the thing that also kind of set me back whenever they did those ratings though was they looked at the entire team overall, so from like top to bottom. And
wouldn't that be the roster?
No, like front office and front office to the team. And so
Glenn.
So they put front office, which includes Peyton, at like 12 or 13 or something like that.
That's interesting. That seems really low. And maybe we're higher on the Broncos than we should be. But I'm trying to find where the pitfall would be. Is it the question marks at wide receiver? Because you actually don't know their potential.
Maybe
that's one of the things I was thinking. But at the same time, you look at the Chargers, and maybe they're not thinking that they're like Mike Williams is way overhyped. Like we talk about having drop issues with Jerry Jeudy,
shockingly overpaid.
Right. Well, and like you bring up drops with Jerry Jeudy and completely forget that Mike Williams is one of the worst drop rates in the NFL. And like the Chargers are the ones that got Khalil Mack, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he hasn't done anything.
He's not the Khalil Mack of like 3-4 years ago.
Right.
So
you guys are ageist.
True. Well, we're the oldest, so we're allowed to be.
Not.
But
I mean, Bill might complain, but
well, except for Bill, who's got his walker in the nursing home right now. But still, sorry, Bill, love you.
But
I didn't hear you screaming at the person to get off his lawn.
But I mean,
turn up your earbuds.
But I will say though, I mean, because we talked about it, I think that people truly don't understand. I know that I've spoken with James Palmer before, and he knew the fact that the Broncos were literally a quarterback away. From the people that he was talking to, it's just like everybody understood that the Broncos were always, in George Payton's words, a sleeping giant. The minute that they got a really good quarterback, an elite level quarterback, they are a team that very well could be, one to be reckoned with. And I think that for anybody that is, should we say, sleeping on Denver, I don't understand it. Because, like, the minute you put a guy like Russell Wilson on that roster, knowing the fact that when you go back and even revisit the deal, they didn't give up anything, hardly. As far as true playmakers in that sense, like wide receiver room, they didn't give up anything that would damage a wide receiving core. So you're talking about Russ literally being able to mesh with the entire wide receiving core, and, a tight end that we all knew was kind of challenging Noah Fant in that regard. So, it's just like there really has been no change for the most part for the Denver Broncos. So for anybody that feels like they're sleeping on the Broncos or disparaging them in any way, I feel it's just so unwarranted.
I have to agree, though, with any sort of hesitation, because we do not know, elite quarterback or not, what Russell Wilson is going to look like within this offense for the Denver Broncos. And as it's been pointed out, I don't think that a new staff, however positive it is, like, I think a lot of us are looking at it like the shift was so impactful and the ripples will be felt for a very long time of just the change in scenery the new coaching staff has brought in, and it's obviously being received really well by the players. If that for whatever reason doesn't actually play out on the field in the win column, there's probably going to be some issues there, and it'll tell us exactly why the national media could have been so low on the Broncos. Like, I think that there's a certain amount of like, how could it be that bad, because everything is so much better. But everything is so much better except for the win-loss record. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I did see something just recently put out that they're predicting the Broncos 8-9, and I think you get one more win out of Russell Wilson than you do Drew Lock, and you've got to burn the whole thing down and start over again, because that's just not going to do it. That would show you that the roster probably did not get much better, but I think the potential is there, and the potential puts us so much higher. Maybe they're being less risky with their analysis there. The Broncos being that far down, the AFC West being that far separated, that to me seems false.
What's cool, Bree, though, is like when we're talking about that, you hope that he meshes well with this offense. One of the great things is that Hackett is working with Russell, and they're working on the offense together. So he is not of the mindset of a Pat Shurmur that you have to adapt to me. We're doing this together. We're doing the plays based on the strengths of all the players, including this quarterback. And that's what I'm excited to see, what kind of new nuances that Russell puts into his game when he has weapons, this many weapons. He didn't have this many in Seattle.
Right. So it may not just be Russell Wilson's offense changing. It'll be Hackett's offense changing, be able to blend those two. Sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, to quote a good friend of the show from earlier in the show, not to hold anything against him, but Drew Lock sucks. No, but like we've seen multiple times that Drew Lock was not able to take advantage of the talent that he was surrounded by. And I think having that known commodity in Russell Wilson, who I believe is the reason why DK Metcalf is the receiver that he is going to help the Broncos receivers gain that potential that they're looking for to reach the level of wide receiver that we think they can be. So I'm still thrown at how they keep putting us in the middle of the road on the roster rankings after adding Russell Wilson, who is obviously going to be better than what we had last year.
Yeah.
Well, are they going to make him look? I mean,
there's no way that he can't be better than last year, right?
Right. How many hours is Russell required by contract to study?
We're not going to get into that.
We have to get into that. That is the most preposterous.
He's got to put an independent study clause in his contract.
Electives. Sure that he's getting electives.
Can I tell you what quarterback doesn't require an independent study addendum in their contract? Tom Brady. I rest my case.
Or any other quarterback in the NFL.
Wouldn't you love for them to stick a microphone in Peyton's face and ask him, like when that news came out, when that contract was revealed yesterday by Rap Sheet? I mean, my goodness, to
Let me breathe.
get off the video games. You know, I mean, he was quoted in the New York Times as saying, you know, I basically can see the plays before they happen. So I'm not a film guy. You're not going to see me work. Wait, are you kidding me? Like this, you know, there was always question whether his commitment was to baseball, to football. It was a very weird interview that he had with Dan Patrick before he was drafted and before it was even announced that he was going to go in the NFL. And just, he seems very, very young. And then when you have this and they still throw that kind of coin at him, guaranteed money, is just absolutely shocking. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for Murray. I mean, he should be mortified that was even brought up, that they don't trust him. And it's embarrassing for the team that they have to, you know, they blew that whole team up to bring someone in that needs to be told to work 4 hours a week. I mean, we prepare for the show more than that. You know, it's like crazy.
They basically ended up having to grasp for straws is what they did.
Yeah.
Well, and this was the whole argument we were getting in an argument in the group chat yesterday about this whole thing. And I kept trying to say, like, well, some of us were, some of us were just dumbfounded. Like, what? But no, like it's been very well established that Kyler Murray loves gaming. Like, he is a nationally ranked gamer in certain games. And so for him, it's like, why would he be fully committed? And I'm not saying that he's not. I'm just saying that would he be fully committed? The Cardinals are saying, why would he be fully committed to something when he could of getting hit and getting sacked and getting injured when he could be sitting at home in his gaming chair making money doing that? So I'm not saying that the Cardinals not a good team. I'm not saying Kyler Murray is not a great player. I'm not saying that he doesn't study. What I am saying is that he has made very clear that he prefers gaming over studying. And so it makes sense why the Cardinals would do that. I just think it's pathetic that they had to do that.
But I will say there's no way he's making the same amount of money gaming. I mean, unless there's something about the gaming that
depends on sponsorships and wins. I mean, he could.
230 million.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's nuts. I'm telling you.
I don't know, but I don't know. It's just it just feels like, for one, if he also wasn't as committed to that organization, he wouldn't have signed the deal. But but
not true, Cam. He was guaranteed 9 figures. You know, like you don't need to be. You just need to find a fool that's willing to pay that.
But and I was just gonna say, he's also I think he and his agency are also just in the wrong in this. Like, and also honestly, it kind of takes me back to the Randy Gregory deal. Why it was impressive that they were able to do it this way. It was like when the contract details of that one, like where you actually had Gregory and his agent literally like look through every single final point of a detail of that contract and why he's not on the Dallas Cowboys anymore. And so I think that for some blame too, it's also on the Cardinals, Kyler Murray as well, because it's like, and even the agent as well, because it's like, if you're looking through a contract, one of the first things they ever tell you in any sort of contract, whether it's the NFL contract, a work contract or whatever, they always say to make sure you're reading the fine details of whatever it is that you're signing. And clearly, it certainly seems like they didn't do any sort of that. So
Cam, that was an addendum. That was an add-on to the contract. So that was not a secret. That was not hidden. The team needed that to be signed, and it's just shocking. I would love to know what the plays were supposed to look like versus how they turned out. Like, did he just get the ball and then run around and heave it around and didn't follow any of the plays? It's just astounding. Someone mentioned Jamarcus Russell, and there's that famous story where they had blank DVDs for him to be watching, and he didn't know they were blank, and so they were asking him about it afterwards, his team, and he was answering the questions, but obviously vaguely because he didn't watch them. Because if he had watched them, he would have known they were blank. I mean, it's these teams must like it. But I just don't know how you give him that kind of money when you have to require them to do just the basics of their job. It's just
Well, it's not like we're sitting here comparing Kyler Murray to Jamarcus Russell, two completely different people, not the same. But
the guy's talented.
The Cardinals obviously saw something or a lack of something that should have been happening with Kyler Murray. We don't know what that is, nor do we care. It's the Cardinals. Suck all you want, but there's obviously was something happening or not happening that was supposed to happen that Kyler was not doing, that they felt they had to add that into the contract.
And so the one thing, because we're talking about, the contract and, with the basically just preparation, basically, right? I mean, it's just basically like game preparation and stuff. So the only thing that I can really kind of like maybe sort of like peel it down and kind of think for myself here was just like, and this is a huge assumption, and I want a full clarification on this because it's a huge assumption from my part, but coming from a person who has a learning difference, I wonder is it possible that they put those types of specifics truly and known in that deal because maybe Kyler Murray has a learning difference, and so that they want to, get it out there to the sense that, we're making sure that he's getting the type of, amenities that he can, even though that every single player literally goes through all of that. So it's just, I don't know. It's just a weird, I don't know why my mind went there, but it's something that, cause I don't know. It's just one of those things like my mind went there as far as that regard. So that's the only thing that I can really just think of off the top of my head.
But Cam, he can't be the only player in the NFL that there can't be just one player that in the NFL that
I agree.
has a learning disability. And everybody is saying, Louis Riddick, I've looked at
I agree.
contracts and I've never seen this. I've talked to everybody that I know in the business. I've never seen, no one's ever heard of something like this. So I know you're looking for like a possible reason that
it's just impossible.
I just it just is probably due to the fact that the guy isn't preparing and he's playing video games or he's
which doesn't make any sense too, because it's like, again, why would you give him the deal? Because if he is doing
because
stuff like
because there's no extra quarterbacks to go around on the game of musical chairs. There's no additional quarterback to get. It's Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray is somewhere in this spectrum of quality of player. And if you get rid of him, where are you going to go? You're going to automatically say you're going to drop. They literally had no choice.
I definitely agree with the logic. It was just it's just more the logic of like, well, if you're going to put something in there, it's just why give him that? You know what I mean? Like, so I get what you guys are saying, and it's the right logic. It's just
because he could hold out for a contract like that.
Yeah. All I know is everything that went on with the Cardinals offseason, and as a result of this, now I want a 30 for 30 about everything that happened.
30 for 30 on the contract.
Yeah, 30 for 30 on the Arizona Cardinals contract, because this is still just bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, I think I get the point behind it. Like you obviously want him concentrating more on football during the season than whatever else he was doing. But to have to put that in a contract, really?
Yeah.
Where are the coaches in all this? Like, are the coaches spending any one-on-one time with him? I mean, it's so strange.
Yeah. What if he's studying the other team on Madden? You don't know. I just had to bring that up.
Yeah. Paxton Lynch.
There you go. All right. So for us, that is going to about do it. We thank you so much for joining us on the show today. And as always, make sure you like, subscribe, share, follow, turn on notifications, and make sure you're tuning into our other shows, the Wild Wild West on Wednesdays, the MHRT Rewind on Thursdays, and Broncos Breakdown with Bronco Bill on Fridays. We also just had the first episode of the Gridiron Legal, which is like a legal breakdown of the Deshaun Watson situation. We're going to have more episodes to come. The next one should be on Thursday. So make sure you're watching for that. And again, we thank you so much for joining us. Tune in so you can get all the updates on training camp. Go Broncos. We love you. Goodbye, everybody.